Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we aren't just looking at a story. We're going to literally dissect the very mechanics of totalitarian control. We're taking a deep dive into a world where reality itself is completely pliable, where your own environment is weaponized against you, and where the absolute most dangerous thing you can possess is your own mind. We're going to explore the chilling anatomy of George Orwell's 1984. Okay, let's jump right into it. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. This is one of the most famous opening lines in all of literature, and honestly for very good reason. Orwell hooks us instantly by signaling that the fundamental rules of reality have already been altered. I mean, a clock striking 13, it's jarring, it's entirely unnatural, and it immediately puts us on edge. We're placed in a world that looks kind of familiar, but operates on an entirely different, deeply unsettling logic. So welcome to Oceania, as our main character, Winston Smith, drags himself into his dilapidated apartment building. He's greeted by this massive face on every single landing. It's a 45-year-old man, heavy black mustache with these eyes deliberately contrived to follow you wherever you move. And the caption reads simply, "Big Brother is watching you." Right out of the gate, the inescapable reality of this society is established. Continuous, totally suffocating surveillance. Section 1. The architecture of surveillance. Now, how exactly does a regime maintain absolute 24/7 control over every single citizen's environment? Well, the answer is the telescreen. And its horrifying efficiency is that it doesn't just broadcast state propaganda about pig iron production all day. It receives and transmits simultaneously. You can dim it, sure, but you can never, ever turn it off. The party forces its citizens to develop this terrifying instinct. You essentially have to live under the constant assumption that every single sound you make above a whisper is overheard and every physical movement is scrutinized by the thought police. It is utter claustrophobia. And it's a really chilling reminder of how continuous surveillance can fundamentally alter human behavior. But the physical environment is really only half the battle here. The party also dominates the visual and psychological environment with these massive, inescapable slogans. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. Just let those hang in the air for a second. The party is actively attacking logic at a foundational level. By forcing everyday citizens to accept these glaring paradoxes as absolute truth, they break down the human mind's ability to reason. They're creating an atmosphere where controlled insanity isn't just common, it's the norm. Section 2. The murder of truth. The true cynicism of the party is perfectly revealed in how it structures its own government. Winston actually works in the Ministry of Truth, which, ironically enough, is entirely dedicated to the production of lies. They falsify news, entertainment, and history. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Love, which is this massive, windowless fortress surrounded by machine gun nests, is where they maintain law and order through brutal torture. This dark paradox captures the very essence of Oceania. Words literally mean their exact opposite. So here is Winston's daily, cold, mechanical reality at the Ministry of Truth. He gets a slip via a pneumatic tube stating that a past prediction made by Big Brother was wrong. Winston then rewrites the article so Big Brother is magically correct again. The paper is reprinted with these new facts, and the original document is just tossed into a blazing furnace called a memory hole. Day by day, minute by minute, the past is scraped clean and reinscribed. History is quite literally frozen in an endless present, where the party is always, without fail, correct. Now, to survive doing this kind of work, you need a very specific mental tool, and they call it doublethink. It is the power of holding two completely contradictory beliefs in one's mind simultaneously and accepting both of them. Winston knows for a fact he's playing tricks with reality by forging documents, but through the mental gymnastics of doublethink, he also satisfies himself that reality is not being violated. It is a conscious deception combined with a complete and total lack of guilt. This concept right here is the absolute bedrock of the party's control over the human mind. Section 3. Winston's internal rebellion. His rebellion starts with a remarkably simple, yet totally fatal act. Winston buys a beautiful, blank book with smooth, creamy paper and a real ink pen, and he decides to start a diary. Now, technically, there are no actual laws in Oceania, but Winston knows perfectly well that merely opening this book will be punished by death, or at best, 25 years in a forced labor camp. He is committing thought crime. It's the essential crime that contains all other crimes in itself. By merely wanting a tiny private space for his own thoughts, he has effectively signed his own death warrant. And when he finally puts that pen to paper, years and years of suppressed terror and hatred just pour out of him. He suffers this minor mental breakdown, his hand cramping up as he frantically writes "Down with Big Brother" over and over, filling half a page in sheer panic. This shows us a desperate, dangerous need for individual expression. He knows the thought police are going to get him eventually, that's a given, but he simply cannot stop that very human impulse to rebel. Yet, right in the middle of this rebellion, Winston is haunted by a core philosophical dilemma. He writes, "I understand how, I do not understand why." He knows the actual mechanics of falsifying the past because, well, he does it every single day. And the immediate advantage of always being right is pretty obvious. But the ultimate motive? Why undertake this huge, incredibly complex imposture to freeze history? That underlying reason remains a terrifying mystery to him. Section 4. The Illusion of Hope. Winston desperately looks for a way to fight back against all of this, and he clings to this one thought. If there is hope, it lies in the proles. The proletarians make up 85% of Oceania's population, and the party largely ignores them, basically viewing them as beneath notice, allowing them to live a squalid but somewhat unmonitored existence. Winston believes that if these swarming masses could just realize their own power, they could shake the party off like a horse shaking off flies. It raises a fascinating question for us today about how easily a massive population can be kept compliant, simply by keeping them distracted and completely unaware of their own collective strength. But hoping for a proletarian uprising just isn't enough for him. Winston, who is now carrying on an illicit love affair with a woman named Julia, makes a fatal, desperate leap of faith. Based on practically nothing more than a shared, fleeting glance, Winston decides to trust an inner party member named O'Brien. Winston lays absolutely everything on the line, openly confessing their treason to him. "We are enemies of the party. We disbelieve in the principles of Ingsoc. We are thought criminals." And they do this in pursuit of a rumored underground resistance called the Brotherhood. A resistance that, tragically, might just be a myth entirely designed to trap people exactly like them. Section 5. The Ultimate Control. And trap them, it definitely does. O'Brien is in fact a deeply loyal inner party member. Winston is captured and placed in a high-ceilinged, windowless cell made of glittering white porcelain, deep inside the Ministry of Love. O'Brien then acts as his interrogator and torturer, delivering this chilling revelation. He says, "We do not merely destroy our enemies, we change them." You see, past tyrannies ultimately failed because they created martyrs. The party does not allow martyrs. They don't just extract a fake confession and put a bullet in your head. No, they break you down completely, scrub your brain clean, and cure you of your unorthodoxy. You must surrender of your own free will before they annihilate you. So O'Brien initiates this rapid-fire, agonizing psychological deconstruction of Winston's entire reality. He subjects Winston to excruciating pain, stopping only to challenge him with questions like, where does the past exist, if at all? Winston tries to argue that the past exists in records and in human memory, but O'Brien systematically destroys this defense. O'Brien then delivers this crushing philosophical answer. We control matter because we control the mind. Reality is inside the skull. Think about that. If the party controls all the records and they use pain and doublethink to control all the memories, then they literally control the past. And if reality isn't objective and external, but exists only in the collective immortal mind of the party, well then whatever the party says is truth is truth. It's a terrifying concept of collective solipsism. And honestly, it forces us to ask ourselves, if our only connection to history is through records that can be altered in an instant, how safe is our own grip on the truth? And then, beaten, broken, and starved, Winston finally gets the chance to ask his central question. What is the motive for all of this? Why go through this massive, accurately planned effort to rewrite history and torture citizens? Why does the party want this absolute power so badly? O'Brien strips away all the usual political lies about ruling for the good of the people. He reveals the naked, horrific truth of totalitarianism. Power is not a means to an end. It is the end. The party seeks power entirely for its own sake. They intend to systematically destroy art, literature, love, friendship, and the very concept of human dignity. O'Brien makes the endgame horrifyingly clear. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face, forever. To survive the unspeakable horrors of Room 101, Winston is forced to betray the one thing he swore to keep safe, his love for Julia. His spirit is utterly broken. He realizes that the external surveillance and torture have completely dismantled his internal soul. He sits at the Chestnut Tree Cafe, a hollowed-out shell of a man, listening to a telescreen, realizing that the long struggle is finally over. He had won the victory over himself. He loved Big Brother. Which leaves us with this final, haunting question that Winston pondered before his capture. How do we know that 2 and 2 make 4? Or that the force of gravity works? Or that the past is unchangeable? If the past and the external world exist only in the mind, and the mind itself is controllable, what then? Orwell leaves us here, challenging us to recognize that common sense and objective truth are incredibly fragile things. When we allow power to completely dictate reality, the heresy of heresies becomes simply believing the evidence of your own eyes. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning and keep your eyes